Imagine buying your dream ranch, acres of open land, total freedom, only to wake up and find the HOA claiming it as community property. They put up signs, held meetings, and even invited neighbors to use my land like a public park. But if they thought I'd sit back and let them take what was mine, they were in for a rude awakening. What happened next left them speechless. I bought my ranch for one reason: peace and space. After 20 years in the city, I wanted open skies, quiet nights, and no one telling me what I could or couldn't do. When I found 10 acres on the outskirts of town, just past the county line, I knew it was perfect. Dirt roads, wild grass, an old fence, even a dried-out creek bed running through the back. It needed work, but it was mine. At least, that's what I thought. The first year was quiet. Just me, my 2 dogs, a couple of horses, and long days fixing fences, clearing brush, and restoring the old barn. I didn't bother too much with the formalities, HOA paperwork, community emails, or whatever else came in the welcome packet. I wasn't interested in neighborhood events or block parties. I wasn't even sure I had neighbors. Then came the note. Folded neatly and stuffed into my gate one morning, written in thick black ink on HOA letterhead. Dear resident, it has come to our attention that your property includes land considered common use space. Please refrain from any further development or activity in that area until this is resolved. No signature, no contact info, just a stamped envelope and vague threat wrapped in politeness. I crumpled it and tossed it in the trash, probably a mix-up. My deed was clear, 10 acres, fully owned, no easements or shared use anything. But it didn't stop there. The next week, a group of people in neon vests and clipboards showed up just past sunrise. I was feeding the horses when I saw them wandering around the back edge of my property like they owned the place. I walked straight up to them. Can I help you? I asked, not even trying to mask the edge in my voice. One of them, a guy in his 50s with a smug smile and a clipboard tight in his grip, barely looked at me. We're with the HOA, he said. We're marking the perimeter of the community greenbelt. Your land falls within it. I blinked. Excuse me, this is private property. He flipped a page and pointed to a blurry map. According to this, the eastern portion of your lot was designated as communal recreation space by the HOA back in 2009. That's not possible, I said. This land wasn't even sold to developers until 2015. I've got the paperwork to prove it. He shrugged like it wasn't his problem. You'll need to take it up with the board. In the meantime, we ask that you remove your fencing and cease any activity in that area. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. You're out of your mind if you think I'm tearing down my fence because of some old map. They left without another word. But that wasn't the end of it, not even close. That night, I stayed up late going through every document I had, purchase agreements, title deeds, surveys, everything. It all lined up. The land was mine, fully owned. I had even paid for a boundary survey when I bought the place. No shared land, no greenbelt, no HOA involvement. But by the next morning, wooden stakes had been driven into the ground on the east side of my ranch, with little pink flags fluttering in the wind, HOA boundary. They'd even driven over part of my irrigation system to do it. I wasn't having it. I called the number listed for the HOA office. No answer. I emailed the board president. No reply. I posted photos of the destruction and the map comparison in the online community portal. Nothing but crickets. So I did what any ranch owner would do. I put the stakes in a pile, tied a note around them that said private property, and left it in the middle of the HOA's community park. That got their attention. The next day, I got a visit from Karen. Now, I didn't know her name yet, but I knew the type. Mid-40s, designer sunglasses, power walking toward my gate like she owned the county. She didn't even wait for me to meet her halfway. She just opened the gate and let herself in like she had a key to the place. I'm Karen Taylor, she said, holding out a clipboard like it was a badge. President of the HOA, I crossed my arms. I'm not a member of the HOA. She smiled, that tight, practiced smile people use when they're trying to act polite but really just want to tell you how things are going to be. Actually, your property falls within our jurisdiction. We have records going back years. You're in violation of multiple regulations, such as encroachment on community space, unsanctioned fencing, livestock without proper permits. I cut her off. My deed says otherwise. You're wrong. She stepped forward, her tone tightening. Look, I'm sure you think you have a case, but the HOA has authority here. You can't just ignore us." "Sure I can," I said. "In fact, I already have." She looked me up and down like I was some wild animal she'd have to trap and relocate. "If you refuse to comply, we'll take legal action." I stared at her for a long second. "Do it." She didn't expect that. Her mouth opened like she had something to say, but no words came out. She just turned around and stormed back to her car, kicking up gravel as she peeled out of my driveway. That week, I started getting fines, stacks of them. Printed notices delivered to my mailbox daily. $100 for unauthorized land use, $75 for non-compliant fencing, $250 for livestock within community space. It was laughable. I wasn't even in their system, but the paperwork kept coming. Then came the sign. Overnight, they put up a laminated placard right by my driveway. "Welcome to the East Greenbelt, a shared space for all residents." I nearly lost it. I called my lawyer. "I need to sue an HOA that I don't belong to," I said. He paused. "That's a new one." I sent him the documents. Within a day, he called me back. "You're not in the HOA. They have no jurisdiction over your land. This isn't just harassment, it's illegal." "Good," I said, "because I'm done playing nice." I didn't waste time. The next morning, I had my lawyer draft a cease and desist letter addressed directly to the HOA board. We cited the deed, the county records, the boundary survey, all of it airtight. The letter was delivered by courier, signature required. No more ignoring me. No more fake maps or pink flags. The message was simple: back off or we'll sue. 2 days later, Karen showed up again. This time she wasn't smiling. She waited just outside the gate, arms folded, pacing like a cop about to interrogate a suspect. I stepped out of the barn, wiping my hands on a rag, and didn't even try to be polite. "You're trespassing," I said flatly. Karen didn't flinch. "I came to talk." "You've already talked," I said. "You also lied, threatened, and vandalized." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "We received your letter." "Good. Did you read it?" She ignored that. "The board is willing to compromise." I raised an eyebrow. "Compromise on what?" "If you agree to remove the fencing around the eastern section and allow shared access, just for community walking trails, we'll drop the fines and end the dispute." I almost laughed. "You want me to give up my land after you tried to steal it, lied about owning it, and racked up fake charges?" Karen didn't blink. "It's not stealing, it's reclaiming. That land was originally part of the development plan. You just happened to buy it before the paperwork caught up." "No," I said. "You mean you didn't do your homework and now you're grasping?" She took a step forward. "We can take this to court." "Great," I said. "Let's," and I turned around and walked away, but Karen didn't leave. Nope. She stood at my gate for another 10 minutes like she expected me to change my mind. Eventually, she stormed off again, this time slamming her car door so hard it echoed down the road. That night, I knew retaliation was coming. Karen wasn't the kind to back down quietly. She needed power like most people need oxygen. And when she couldn't get it by force, she'd try something sneakier. And sure enough, she did. The very next morning, I found orange spray paint on my fence line. A perfect dotted line, weaving across my property, labeled HOA border. I stood there staring at it, mouth clenched, hands balled into fists. This was their next move, trying to prove the land wasn't mine by marking their own lines. But here's what Karen didn't know. I had already hired a private land surveyor to conduct a second, up-to-date survey. The guy was legit, certified by the state and recommended by the county records office. When I called to let him know what was going on, he came out that same week. Brought drones, GPS gear, the whole setup. He mapped everything in detail, every inch of the property lines, fence posts, structures, even the spray paint. And when he handed me the official report, I had exactly what I needed, undisputed proof Karen had crossed the line. Literally. But the story didn't end there, because I wasn't about to just play defense anymore. I was done reacting. It was time to take control, so I put up signs, big ones. Private property, trespassers will be prosecuted, no public access. Not part of HOA, I placed them at every entry point, every corner. And I mailed copies of the land survey to every board member with a sticky note attached. Next time you want to claim land, try buying it. I figured that would shut them up. It didn't. Instead, they doubled down. A week later, I received a formal letter from the HOA's legal representative. It was a cheap law firm 2 towns over, probably someone's cousin. The letter accused me of obstructing community access, refusing to comply with shared use policies, and my favorite part, defacing public space with aggressive signage. My lawyer nearly choked laughing when I read it to him over the phone. "They're bluffing," he said, "and they're digging their own grave." But the pressure kept building. The HOA hosted an emergency community meeting at the clubhouse. Karen made a show of it, inviting the entire neighborhood, setting up a projector, even bringing pastries. It was clear she was trying to turn public opinion against me. A neighbor who secretly recorded the meeting later sent me the footage. Karen stood at the front, pacing like a politician. "This individual," she said, not even using my name, "is actively preventing community development. He refuses to acknowledge the HOA's right to access land that was designated for shared use years ago." One resident asked, "Was that land ever actually approved as community space?" Karen smiled tightly. "The intent was always there. The board just hadn't completed the formal steps." Another voice chimed in, "But didn't he buy it fair and square?" Karen didn't like that. She changed the subject fast, but people were starting to question her. Her grip on the HOA was slipping, and she knew it. Then she made her boldest move yet. 2 days after that meeting, a group of volunteers showed up at my property with shovels, orange vests, and a banner that read "Community Nature Trail, coming soon." They started digging, on my land. I saw it from my kitchen window and nearly dropped my coffee. My first instinct was to go out there and yell, but I stopped myself. Instead, I grabbed my phone and hit record. I filmed everything. The digging, the banners, the people walking through my field. I didn't say a word, just kept recording. After 10 solid minutes, I called the sheriff. "Got a group trespassing on my property," I said. "They're digging up the ground and putting in signs. I've got the deed survey and video evidence." Sheriff showed up 30 minutes later, lights flashing. By the time I walked out to meet him, the volunteers were standing awkwardly in a semicircle while Karen tried to talk her way out of it. "This is a misunderstanding," she said, fake smiling. "We believed this land was accessible." The sheriff cut her off. "You believed wrong." He asked for ID, collected names, and told them all to leave. Right then, Karen argued, of course, said I was being unreasonable, that she was doing what was best for the neighborhood. The sheriff just pointed to the signs. "He's not in your HOA. This is private land. Keep pushing it and someone's getting arrested." That finally shut her up. The volunteers scattered. Karen stormed off again, her face beet red, jaw clenched so tight it looked like it might crack. But even then, I could tell she wasn't done, and neither was I. Because the moment she stepped onto my land, dug into my soil, and tried to lay claim to what wasn't hers, she crossed a line she couldn't walk back from. After the sheriff sent Karen and her little construction crew packing, I figured she'd go quiet for a while, lick her wounds, regroup, maybe even realize she'd lost. I underestimated how far she was willing to go. 2 days later, I noticed something strange. The county assessor's office sent me a letter, an official-looking one. It said my property had been flagged for a use reclassification based on community zoning reviews. That might sound like bureaucratic nonsense, but in plain English, it meant someone was trying to get part of my land labeled as public use. Again, I called the office immediately. The clerk on the line was polite but vague. The request came from the Homeowners Association on behalf of the community. They submitted an annexation proposal. I clenched my teeth. But I'm not part of their HOA. That land isn't zoned for annexation. It's already recorded as private. He paused. "Yes, well, the proposal hasn't been approved. It's under review. You can submit a formal objection." "You'll have it by tomorrow," I said, already printing my deed and survey packet for the 100th time. I hung up, fuming. Karen was trying to rewrite the rules. She knew she couldn't win legally, so now she was going after the zoning. If she got her way, the land I owned would technically still be mine, but the county would treat it as if the public had access rights. It was dirty, sneaky, and completely out of line, so I went public. I posted everything on the neighborhood's online forum, screenshots, legal documents, even the video of the trail crew being removed by the sheriff. I titled it, "The Truth About the HOA's Land Grab." Within an hour, comments started rolling in. People were shocked. Some were angry. A few admitted they'd been told I was the problem, that I was blocking a community park, being aggressive, refusing to cooperate. But once they saw the evidence, things started shifting, and that's when neighbors started reaching out. One man, Paul, who lived 2 streets over, messaged me directly. "Hey, I thought you were exaggerating until they did the same thing to me. Tried to fine me for building a shed in my own backyard. HOA said it was encroaching on open space. Same map, same flags." They backed off when I pushed, but I knew something was off. Another woman, Alicia, commented, "Karen told me she was building a nature trail for the kids. She said everyone agreed to it. I had no idea she was just stealing land." The dominoes were falling. By the end of the day, I had over 50 comments and 10 private messages, all from people who had been lied to, manipulated, or outright harassed by the HOA. But here's the kicker. One of those messages came from someone on the inside, a man named Tom, HOA treasurer. He didn't post publicly, just sent me one sentence in a private message. "Check the budget reports for land management. You'll find what you need." That was it. No follow-up, just a breadcrumb. I didn't wait. I pulled up the last 6 months of HOA financials, which Karen had posted online to show transparency. I combed through them line by line, and there it was, line item. Land maintenance $9,500 paid to a company I'd never heard of, Green Space Solutions LLC. I Googled it. Nothing came up. No address, no website, no business license in the state database. It didn't exist. They had made up a company to funnel money, probably to cover the cost of the bogus flags, stakes, trail signs, or whatever else Karen had used on my land. Now I had 2 things on my side, legal proof and what looked like financial fraud. I called my lawyer. "You said you wanted to stop playing defense," he said. "Then it's time to file a lawsuit." We got to work. The claim was simple: harassment, trespassing, defamation, and attempted theft via fraudulent zoning and illegal use of funds. We included the Forge Trail project, the boundary vandalism, the phony fines, all of it. We filed it publicly, and I sent a copy to the entire neighborhood via the community portal, just like Karen had done with her petty notices and false accusations. The reaction, explosive. People weren't just upset anymore, they were furious. Karen had made herself out to be the face of the HOA. So when everything blew up, she couldn't hide. Someone even printed the lawsuit and taped it to her front door. But there was more. Tom messaged me again, this time with screenshots, internal board emails. Karen had emailed the rest of the board members saying, "Even if he's technically outside the HOA, we can make the land so difficult to manage that he'll cave. If we control access, he'll have to follow our rules eventually." She called it a pressure strategy. She even referred to my property as potential leverage. That email ended up circulating everywhere. It was over. Karen just didn't know it yet. The HOA called an emergency board meeting. I was invited to attend, but not as a guest. This time I was going in as the guy suing them, and half the neighborhood was now on my side. When I arrived, the room was packed. Karen sat stiffly at the head of the table, jaw clenched, eyes cold. The other board members looked nervous, especially Tom. He gave me a quick nod but said nothing. I walked straight to the front, dropped a folder on the table, and opened it. "Here's the deed," I said. "Here's the survey. Here's the cease and desist you ignored. Here's the sheriff's report. And here's the lawsuit." Karen tried to interrupt, but I held up a hand. "Don't speak. Just listen." The room went silent. "You targeted me. You vandalized my property. You lied to your own neighbors. And you misused HOA funds to pull off a land grab you thought no one would notice. But I noticed. And now everyone else knows too." Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. Finally, one board member, Barbara, the vice president, spoke up. "We didn't approve any of this," Karen snapped. "You all agreed to the trail plan." Barbara shook her head. "We agreed to a proposal. You never told us you were going after land outside the HOA. And you certainly didn't tell us you made up a maintenance company." Karen went pale. Tom cleared his throat. "I move that we suspend Karen pending legal review and investigation." Barbara seconded it without hesitation. The vote was unanimous. Karen stood up like someone had just kicked the chair out from under her. "This is a witch hunt," she snapped. "You're all just scared of a lawsuit." "No," I said calmly. "They're just tired of being lied to." Karen stormed out again, but this time she didn't come back. Karen disappeared after that meeting, but only physically. Behind the scenes, she was working every angle she could find to save face. Even after being suspended from the HOA board, she still had connections, people loyal to her. The kind of folks who thrived on gossip, loved the smell of power, and owed Karen favors. So it didn't surprise me when I started getting anonymous notes in my mailbox. The first one said, "You think this is over? You'll regret this." The second one came with no words at all, just a copy of the lawsuit, circled in red ink and a crude drawing of a noose. I handed both over to the sheriff. He took them seriously, said they'd keep an eye on things, but without a name or witness, there wasn't much they could do yet. But I wasn't scared. I was ticked. Karen was off the board, sure, but she wasn't letting go. She wanted revenge, so I gave her a reason to choke on it. I hosted a community BBQ, not out of spite, but to bring people together. The truth was, most folks didn't even know what kind of person Karen really was until she picked a public fight with me. Now that the curtain had been pulled back, they were ready for a change. So I fired up the grill, set up tables by the barn, brought in a local bluegrass band, and opened the gates. Over 60 people showed up. Some brought their kids. Some brought coolers. Others just came to see the guy who stood up to the HOA and lived to tell the tale. We didn't talk about lawsuits or boundary lines. We talked about fences, garden tips, bad weather, and good food. For the first time since I moved out there, it actually felt like a community. That's what Karen couldn't stand. The next morning, someone flattened all 4 tires on my truck. I checked the cameras. Faces were covered, timing was just right. But whoever did it, they came prepared. Still, it didn't stop me. If anything, it fueled me. We were in the final stages of the lawsuit now. Karen had officially been removed from her HOA position after the financial audit revealed that Green Space Solutions, her fake maintenance company, was registered under her cousin's name. The county launched an investigation. The HOA board, trying to save face, claimed they were shocked and blindsided. But that wasn't even the biggest blow. The county zoning board had officially rejected the annexation proposal. Karen's entire plan, stealing land by rewriting it into community space, had been exposed and shut down. She tried to override deeds, destroy property, manipulate the system, and failed. But just when I thought it was finally over, Karen made one last desperate move. She filed a counter-lawsuit against me, that's right. After everything she'd done, she claimed I had defamed her character, harassed her, and created a hostile environment. It was laughable. She even attached screenshots from the neighborhood forum, comments from people calling her a power-tripping lunatic and Queen HOA. As if I was responsible for public opinion. My lawyer's response, 3 pages long, all evidence, no emotion. He ended it with, the plaintiff's counterclaim is not only meritless, but a clear attempt to distract from ongoing investigations into her own misconduct. And just like that, her suit was dismissed with prejudice, meaning she couldn't bring it up again. At the same time, my case against the HOA was moving forward, and thanks to the support from neighbors and the now-disgraced treasurer Tom, who had fully flipped sides, I had more than enough documentation to push for damages. The board's lawyer offered a settlement. We'd like to resolve this quietly, they said. Avoid more embarrassment. Translation. They knew they were cooked, I agreed, but on my terms. Full reimbursement for all legal fees and property damages. A written, public apology from the board. A declaration recorded with the county that confirmed my land was not, had never been, and would never be under HOA control. They signed off on all 3. The statement went out to every resident. We acknowledge that the HOA board, under the leadership of a former president, acted outside its authority in attempting to claim land not under its jurisdiction. The property owner was within his full legal rights, and we apologize for the undue stress and disruption caused. It felt like justice, but I still wasn't satisfied because Karen still lived in the neighborhood, still walking around like she was the queen. She didn't show her face often, but every now and then I'd spot her peeking from behind her blinds as I drove by. Then came the real twist. Tom, the former treasurer, approached me with an idea. The HOA needs new leadership, he said. We want you to run for president. I laughed out loud. Me, I'm the guy who wanted nothing to do with the HOA. I didn't even know I was near it. That's exactly why you should, he said. No one trusts the board anymore. People want someone who won't let this kind of garbage happen again. I said no at first, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I didn't want control. But I did want protection for myself, and for everyone else who didn't have the time or resources to fight like I had. So I ran, and I won, not by a slim margin. It was a landslide. Even people who'd never spoken to me before came out to vote. And when the results were announced, it was official. I was the new HOA president. First thing I did, rewrite the bylaws. I added a clause that made it impossible for the HOA to interfere with properties outside its direct jurisdiction ever again. No gray area, no assumptions, no fake maps. Second thing, transparency. All financial records now had to be published monthly, and every board meeting had to be open to all residents. And third, I banned Karen from holding any future position in the HOA, permanently. She didn't attend the meeting, but she got the message. Later that week, I saw a moving truck outside her house. No note, no goodbye, just boxes loading into a trailer. Karen was gone. I stood at the edge of my ranch the day Karen left, watching from the same spot she once stood, clipboard in hand, barking orders like a self-appointed sheriff. Only now, she was the one disappearing in silence. No neighbors waving goodbye, no farewell message, not even a final email blast, just a moving truck, an embarrassed look on her husband's face, and the distant screech of cardboard against gravel as the last box hit the trailer. It was quiet. The kind of quiet I bought this ranch for. But her chaos had changed the neighborhood and me with it. For weeks after her departure, people kept dropping by, some to thank me, some to apologize for not speaking up sooner, and a few just wanted to share stories. Turns out, Karen's reign wasn't just about trying to steal my land. She'd been controlling everything from Christmas decorations to lawn heights for nearly a decade. She fined me $50 for having solar lights, one guy said. She tried to ban inflatable pool toys, a mom told me. Said they were visual clutter. She actually yelled at my dog once for barking. That's what dogs do, story after story, rule after rule. And all of them enforced by someone who never thought she'd get caught. But she did. I made sure of it, and with her gone, things shifted. The new HOA board, now transparent, accountable, and way less power-hungry, actually started listening to people. Meetings were open, no more secret votes, and the nonsense citations stopped completely. I didn't plan on being president forever. Heck, I didn't even want the job in the first place. But the least I could do was set the foundation so no one else ever had to go through what I did. Still, every now and then, I'd catch myself thinking back to that first letter, the one that started it all. The note slipped into my gate, politely telling me to stay off my own land. Back then, I figured it was just a mistake, a fluke. I had no idea it would snowball into full-blown legal war, but it had taught me something important. Silence is permission. If I had ignored it, if I'd let them put one foot over the line without pushing back, I'd have lost more than just a few acres. I'd have lost ownership of my space, my peace, my independence, and they would have kept pushing. Karen would have turned my land into her next HOA nature preserve, all under the banner of community improvement. Now, with my land protected and the HOA straightened out, life went back to normal, mostly. There were still flare-ups. About a month after Karen left, I noticed a new name pop up in the community forum, someone named Shelley. She posted a suggestion that the HOA should re-explore the use of undeveloped land for community benefit. I replied immediately, "If you're talking about my ranch, we've been down that road. That land is private and staying that way. End of discussion." She didn't respond, didn't have to. The rest of the community backed me up in the comments. Some even tagged the bylaws I'd written into place. The message was clear. No more power grabs. After that, things stayed quiet. I got back to working the ranch, mending fences, tending to the horses, taking in the kind of sunsets you can't find in the city. Every now and then I'd host another barbecue or bonfire and folks would still bring it up. Remember the trail crew? Man, they just started digging. Karen really thought she could take your land. Wild. The story became legend, but not because I wanted credit. Honestly, I didn't care about being the guy who took on the HOA. I just wanted my space back, my peace. Still, it felt good knowing people stood up because of what happened. One evening, as I sat on the porch sipping coffee, Tom, former treasurer and the guy who blew the whistle, dropped by. "Figured I owed you a visit," he said. "The board's been working on some new guidelines and we're thinking of renaming the community park." I raised an eyebrow. "To what?" he smirked. "Freedom Field," I laughed. "Bit dramatic, don't you think?" "Maybe," he shrugged. "But it sends a message." I nodded. "That it does." He stood to leave, then paused. "You know, if you ever get tired of the board, I'd be happy to run next term, keep things fair." I looked him in the eye. "You'd make a good one, and trust me, I'll be the first to vote." He walked off, and I watched the sunset sink below the hills, fireflies dancing in the tall grass, dogs stretched out at my feet. It was finally quiet again. No Karen, no fake maps, no bogus fines, just the land just as it was meant to be. But if anyone ever tries it again, they'll find out real quick. I don't bluff, I don't back down, and I sure as hell don't let anyone take what's mine. Because when the HOA claimed my ranch as community land, they regretted it immediately, and they always will.